Good afternoon, everyone. Have a seat. You guys get the t-shirts right there. So I hope you guys are doing well. We're almost halfway through DAC. I'm sure you guys are all really tired walking around, but rest a little while and feel free to interrupt at any time and ask some questions, okay? What we're going to do is really talk about Cadence IP. If you think about it, a lot of people know Cadence for their EDA tools. Not many are that aware that we have a very broad and full portfolio of IP. Okay? So really what we're talking about is bringing peace back into the SoC. In peacetime, things were, years back, it made sense. You're doing designs in the megahertz, millions of gates. You had 2 years to do your designs. And then you had a design team that matched that. Everything is kind of leveled in the world, you know, things were good. Today, if you look at the design environment, everything's gotten bigger, faster, more complex. It's gigahertz speeds, it's gigagates of SoC designs. You're not using 1 or 2 or 3 IPs, you're using 10, 20, 30 IPs. You got to integrate it all. And on top of all that, your design cycle has shifted to half the time, and your design teams have stayed the same or gotten smaller. Okay. So really, we think the balance of that, bringing peace back, is really what you get with IP and VIP. The whole purpose of what Cadence is trying to do is to bring productivity to your SoC designs by providing the right IPs and the right verification IPs to help you accelerate your SoC design, especially for next generation, to allow you to give you the right combination of IPs that integrate it, that saves you time, saves you on integration, saves you on validation and verification. Okay. So with that said, what Cadence is focusing on right now is bringing a broad portfolio, making sure that we have all the IPs that you need, the right IPs. Okay. On top of that, a lot of times what we've done talking to customers is we find out that sometimes when you get IP, you actually have to redesign your SoC around that IP. That makes absolutely no sense in terms of productivity. So we really believe in configuration and customization, taking that IP and making sure that IP fits into your SoC, and you don't have to redesign your SoC around the IP. And finally, another thing is quality. You want to make sure you have IP that works. The worst thing is to go into an IP environment and find out that the IP that's supposed to save you time actually just extends your design time. Okay. So with that said, Cadence has a new type of IP factory, and what we call IP factory is something that's architected for efficiency, quality, and focuses on the whole SoC system, the integration. Okay. So if you look at the way IP years back and even some now is what we call the flea market. You know, and the way I look at IP is any guy with a laptop and a garage can say they have IP. The problem with that, like the flea markets, when you go out there, sometimes you'll find a gem, but in general, you find a lot of garbage that's out there. You don't know if it's real, it's fake, how good it is, or anything else. Then you go to the opposite end, the mega stores. You know, that's your Costco. You go off the shelf and there's a lot of IPs, and it's what you have off the shelf, and that's great. And if it fits your design, that's great. But if it doesn't, there's not a whole lot of flexibility a lot of times. There's not a lot of customization. So a lot of times you have to design your SoC around that IP. Okay? Really what we're talking about is IP factory. Having a breadth of IP, but it's customizable or configurable to really fit your SoC. It's architected to fit your system design. It's really about quality and system focus. So kind of like the Nike model where it's built to order, it's easy to integrate. You go online, you choose your colors, you choose the type of shoe you want. That's what we're talking about in the IP world, to bring that kind of factory methodology and mentality into IP. Okay. So with that said, we want to give examples of how we allow you to customize or configure. One example is our PCIe. So our controller, what we do is we give you scalable bandwidth. You can change on the fly how wide you want to go. We give you the ability to configure the interface, whether it's AHB, AXI, DMA on that back end. You can choose whether you want 32 bits, 256 bits. Then we have tunable performance. You can change how big your buffer is going to be to manage your performance. Okay? We can do virtualization support. Okay? We allow multiple configurations, whether you want an endpoint or root complex or dual mode. Okay? Another example is our DDR IP. Very similar. We give you a lot of configuration. So the beauty of a memory controller is a lot of times you're going to connect to multiple CPUs or multiple controllers. You want to control the same memory. So we give support for multiple clients, whether you have multiple CPUs or codecs or DSPs that need access to that memory. We can support multiple CPUs or clients, but we can also support different bandwidths on that, whether it's going to be 32 bits, 64 bits, 128 bits. Okay. To give you more configuration, we allow you to choose what your local bus is going to look like, whether it's AHB or OCP or AXI. Okay. Next thing is, in terms of tunable performance, whether you want fully pipeline, tuning registers, we have an arbitration engine and a priority engine, so you can manage, if you have multiple clients, what you do, how you manage your performance through the controller. Okay. We offer advanced features that are optimized, like built-in self-test or ECC. Okay. We also support a variety of different DIMMs as well. Okay. And then we also have a low power option, so maybe you don't need DDR, you want LPDDR. So we have that built in so you can actually customize to your SoC. We configured, if you're going to use an external PHY, someone else's PHY, we have the standard PHY interfaces with DFI 2 all the way to DFI 3.1. We have scalable bandwidth anywhere up to 64 bits, 72 bits, or whatever you need. More importantly, we will support multiple memories. And the nice thing about it is most everyone who uses our controllers want support for multiple memories. It's not just about having support for DDR3 or having support for LPDDR2. So a lot of times we'll do a combination of supporting DDR3, DDR2, and LPDDR2. So it gives you options in your designs that, depending on what the memory prices are, within your system you can change out that memory, because you have that controller that will support it all. Or you want the latest, DDR4, DDR3, and LPDDR3. So we will support those configurations for your SoCs to give you a lot more flexibility at a system level, not just at an IP level. And really, it's all about what the system looks like. It's not about the IP. So we're trying to give you as much flexibility within your SoC design. Okay. With that said, Cadence has made a lot of IP investments over the last few months. We acquired Tensilica. They have over 200 licenses and engaged with a lot of the top tier semiconductor companies already. And what Tensilica gives us is what we call DPU, Data Plane Processing Unit, that acts like a coprocessor to your CPU. What it does is it gives you options to trade off between hardware and software now. So it's a very unique IP that no one else has, that addresses the CPU, can address the control plane, will address the data plane. Okay. We announced, we announced intent to acquire Cosmic, and that has closed. So Cosmic Circuits brings us a lot of analog mixed signal experience, as well as a lot of mobile analog PHYs. Okay. We made an announcement to acquire Evatronics, and actually that fills in some of our things in our controllers with USB and with MIPI, and also on our memory side with SDIO and eMCC. We are the first to complete DDR and wide I/O IP. We have always been known as the memory controller guys, so we are the first with DDR4, having hardware verified DDR4 PHY with a lot of foundries. And then we're expanding and focusing on the 28 and the next generation FinFET technologies. Okay, so what we want to do is we are application optimized. We're looking at very key markets to provide value in those market segments, because when you go to buy IP, you're either an infrastructure guy and there's a kind of set of IP that you want. You're a mobile guy. There's a certain set of IPs that you're interested in. So really, that's what we've done. And everyone asks us, how does this all fit together? So Cadence beforehand had a very strong portfolio already with 10 gigabit Ethernet, PCIe, with our DDR and LPDDR, high-end AFEs, analog front ends. What Cosmic brought us is really the mid and the low end on the analog front ends, USB and MIPI and DFI. Okay. What Tensilica brings us is really kind of that data plane processing with DSP, focused on things that are optimized for baseband or audio or display. So it's a great complement for any CPU that you have embedded into your SoC. And then Evatronic kind of fills in some of the control logic that we need with USB controllers, SDIO, eMCC. Okay? So what we've done is we've made a very intentional and conscious effort to listen to our customers and say, what kind of IP and what kind of space do you need to fill? And we've complemented our internal development with some acquisitions. Okay? So if you look at it, we have a really complete and comprehensive portfolio of IP now. Memory and storage with the DRAMs and the NAND, interface with PCIe, Ethernet, MIPI, and USB, and a strong analog mixed signal from ADCs to temperature sensors for a wide range of different applications. At the same time, we're working at our subsystem IPs to integrate a lot of these parts together. And we talked about simplifying and making it more productive for you. So we're looking at these systems and saying, okay, which IP makes sense to work together? How do we automatically integrate it together to make it easier for you? So that's what our subsystem IP is. An example of that is, I had mentioned Tensilica. They have a very strong audio subsystem. It makes a lot of sense to integrate that with the Slim Bus. The Slim Bus is for mobile phones. So the audio is used in a lot of PCs and mobile phones right now. So we'll be putting stuff like that together to simplify you as SoC designers, your life, having it already verified and easy to use. Okay. At the same time, we talked about focusing on the system and not just the IP. Cadence has the strongest portfolio of verification IP. We have over 45 different protocols supported. We support all the major memory, I think over 85 different kind of memory models. And then we also have a set of advanced verification tools with accelerated VIP, power tools, and formal VIP. So we believe that it makes a lot of sense to have a strong verification, because if you look at the design cycle for SoCs today, verification becomes one of the most difficult and longest parts of it. So having IP is very important, but having a good solid foundation with verification IP is also important, and we have that working together. Okay. We are going to, if you want to know more about VIP, we are going to have another talk on Wednesday at 2:30, so you can learn more about VIP, or you can come to our booth across the way over there. And actually, we have a game about our protocols and stuff like that. Okay. So just in summary, we're bringing peace to the SoC market with Cadence IP. We want to make big changes in the IP market. We think we've done that with a lot of acquisitions. We're going to do a lot more with the next steps, so stay tuned. And we just want to introduce you to Cadence IP and saying we're doing a lot of stuff in that market. Okay.
Any questions? Any questions for the sheriff?
So you talked about supporting lots of different foundries. So that chart, the matrix that you showed of all the IP that you know, all the protocols, how balanced is that across all the foundries?
Right now, what we're doing is we have a range of different things, and we're trying to balance it all out right now. We have a lot of things on the major foundries like UMC, GF, TSMC. The smaller foundries, we have more specialized things. So for our DDR, we're pretty well balanced for some of our analog mixed signal. Our USB is probably only on the major foundry. So it really depends on, there's just a lot of nodes, whether you're talking about the analog mixed signal stuff running at 90 or 65. We've got that whole range all the way to 130 on that, down to 28. The leading edge stuff like DDR4, we're working with foundries on FinFET right now. So it really depends on which technology you're looking at. Well, we don't have everything at all nodes, and it's just not realistic for us to do that right now. But what we've done is focused on key nodes and key technologies for the right application. So for example, we're not going to drive a lot of the mobile ADF stuff in a 28 because a lot of the people are still using it at 65. Okay.
Any other question?
Are you guys buying the design services part of Cosmic too? So Cosmic Circuits, they had a design services section of their business. Is that going to be part of Cadence?
Okay. Cadence has always had a background in design services. Our focus is on design IP. If we do it correctly, services are less critical. Cadence still has a services group, but what we're focusing on is standardizing our IP to make sure we have a standardized IP offering out there, so not everything is a one-off. If we architect it correctly, it gives you the configuration and customization you need, so you don't need those services. But we partner with a lot of people. If you want a complete end-to-end services, we have services within Cadence to do that, but that's not what the design IP will be focusing on.
Question? Okay.
Any more questions?
Y'all have your...
There's one more question over there.
Where? Oh, come on over.
Yeah. So my question is, do you all have any IP for characterization, silicon character, for example, DDR, JEDEC standards?
Yes, we do. We provide characterization for a lot of our PHYs. We silicon verify most of it, and we go with customers on it. So we do have characterization ports. We'll show, the eye patterns and the jitter and everything else.